everybody. Welcome to Question the Answer. My name is Christine.
And I'm Meghan.
And we are here to bring all types of opinions and all types of people together to have the difficult conversations in the divisive society that we live in today. Hi, Meghan.
Hi.
How you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. So episode number 2, we
made it.
We did it. I can't wait to actually look back on these to see how awful we started and where we grow to. Mm-hmm. So today I think we agreed, because we kind of, last week was really about like who we are,
social media,
where we came from, all the things in the world, and what we believe on them. So now we're kind of back today. I think the promise was a little bit of COVID talk.
Who doesn't love to talk about COVID?
Well, I mean,
fan favorite.
I don't know. I think I think people are pretty sick of talking about COVID. I mean, I don't know about you, but I haven't really thought about it in a while. It's never really stopped me from doing anything that I normally did. So we're going to get into the weeds today about COVID. However, that's kind of going to take us on some tangents, as it always does, because it's not just about COVID, right? It's about what happened during COVID, how it affected people's lives, and kind of where we are today, which is pretty far from where we started.
I think COVID really brought it out, but it's been kind of going on that, you know, all the things that as Americans, as people, we trusted and believed because we were told to believe it. And just with the events that occurred, mainly with COVID, but as you see today, things with the FBI, the Department of Justice, the CDC, with their recent announcement of kind of erasing all previous rules for COVID.
I love how they were like, yeah, we were wrong.
Like, JK.
We were...
Hope you're doing really well, but you just ignore what we said.
Yeah, all the relationships we destroyed.
Yes.
Don't worry about it.
Hope you found a new job. It's just, I think we're kind of opening our eyes and waking up to what our podcast is about, really questioning the answer and questioning what is being fed to you on the daily basis.
Well, it's interesting because, everybody was in a different boat during COVID.
Yes.
And there was a point in time where it was serious. You bet.
Of course.
But people also had very different opinions about COVID based off of the environment and what was going on in their own life. So if you had a death in your family because of COVID, I would think that your opinion is a little bit different than if you didn't have that death in your family.
Or weren't seriously affected at all.
You bet. I mean, you and I come from the same family. We lost our grandmother during COVID, but it wasn't because of COVID.
Right.
So once again, our perspective can be very different than somebody who may have lost somebody during COVID. It was interesting. I was at a coffee shop with one of my girlfriends. And by the way, if you're a youngin' out there, it's not that I have a girlfriend. That's what we call our friends if you're in a certain age group. And we're sitting there, and we were having a conversation about masks. And behind us were these two very young girls. She had to be about maybe 18 or 19 years old. Beautiful young girl. And we were having a conversation about masks. And if you've met my one friend, she's very loud, very outspoken. It really has a very strong opinion that goes one way. And she was in the middle of a sentence, and this young girl behind us gets up and stands up, and she goes, "Hey, how dare you say that about COVID? I lost my uncle during COVID." And my friend whips her head around and starts screaming at this poor young girl. And I said, stop. She's young. You have to remember, these young kids haven't been through anything like this.
Right.
You know, our generation, we've been through 2 wars. We've been through almost 3 pandemics. Hang on. Like, don't yell at her for being passionate, even though she has the entire...
But also, mind your business. Like, have your latte and... go about your day.
I understand that. Yes, mind your own business. But the point is, like, don't inflame the situation to somebody who has a certain perspective that's very outside of your own.
But I think you bring up a good point, because there is such a divide with people, and it's because of personal experience. It's because of what's being spewed out there in the media. I truly, this is my own personal opinion, but I truly think the media is the main culprit of why there's such a divide in the country. I think it is the media who is the biggest failure and disappointment in our society.
Well, I think there's a statistic out there that says, I don't know, it's low. It's like 17% of the country trust the media. Now, so let's that's interesting that you say that, because as I'm trying to do research on this, I'm noticing a lot of, like, the articles I was looking for, they were somewhat gone. They were missing.
Oh, that's so strange.
Well, and I do all my research through Google. I'm not going to lie. I could absolutely go to a different search engine, but everything through Google had a very specific direction it was pointing. So I wanted to, what people don't understand is there's a pandemic every 8 years. Did you know that?
I did not.
You've been through 2 already. It's interesting how this one was a little bit different, because it wasn't even a pandemic that affected the population across the world as much as other pandemics, yet the extreme measures we took to try to mitigate this pandemic was very different than anything else we've ever done. And we actually adopted the mitigation efforts from, can you guess where? China. We literally took China's blueprints.
Of course.
And we passed it. It wasn't just in the U.S. either. It was passed around the world. Everybody did it because nobody knew what to do. So her early history is, let me just scroll down. This little thing is going up and down. It's driving me insane. So if I just count, there's like this really great picture online. It's called The History of Pandemics. We'll pop it up on the screen for you to see. But if I just kind of count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's been about 17 pandemics since the bubonic plague. So once again, every, I believe it's 8 to 12 or 14 years, there's a pandemic. And by the way, as we fill the earth with more humans, the possibility for more pandemics and more viruses to emerge is just going to raise. That's just the way it is. Viruses, I wish we would do more study in viruses, not gain of function studies, but actual, why are viruses so much smarter than the human body? Because the purpose of a virus is to trick your body and to, I want not migrate, that's so the wrong word, but to change so it can trick your body more and then keep growing. I wish we did a little bit more research on that, because that research never really came out during COVID, is what do we actually
At least that we know of. Yeah.
At least that I know of. Okay. All right, so history of pandemic. So basically, as of today, so this was 10 a.m., July 8th is the last time that it pulled this number. COVID took 6.3 million lives across the world. Okay, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of death. The bubonic plague took 200 million.
That's wild.
I didn't know there was that many
neither.
people on the earth in 1347. I really didn't. Then you have smallpox, that was 56 million. Spanish flu, 40 to 50 million. You had I've never heard of this one. Plague of Justinian.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
I don't know. It must have been named after someone named Justin. That one was 30 to 50 million. And then this was shocking. This was something I didn't know. HIV AIDS. How many lives do you think that claimed?
Millions?
Well, yeah. Da-na-na-na.
I'm the worst
Your
at
song's
this game.
going to run out in
10.
a second. 25 to 35 million lives. Now, what's fascinating? Did you know that HIV, not that they can cure it, but they actually have, it's a pill now that people take, and nobody dies from HIV or AIDS anymore.
Really?
Isn't that crazy? That was in 1981 to present. I mean, we all know the musical Rent.
Oh, love Rent.
I mean, that was about
Yes.
that pandemic during that time. And then you have the third plague, which is in 1855. That was 12 million. And then right after that sits COVID. So sitting at the 6.3 million mark of lives that it's taken across the country, or excuse me, across the world. So that's kind of an outlook. And then you have all these other things. So another pandemic that happened during our lifetimes, you have, oh wow, there's a lot. Ebola was 2014 to 2016.
I see. I don't really.
That was more in the African continent, I believe.
Yeah, and I feel like, I was younger then, so you're not really paying attention to.
You weren't that young.
I was younger.
Okay. MERS.
Okay.
2012 to present. That's still going on.
Yes.
That's like
You
when
hear about that, yes.
You don't want your kids going in the water parks.
Correct.
And MERS is passing around. That's a deadly one. And then you have SARS, which is 2002 to 2003.
Yes.
So SARS, bringing me all the way back up, is a coronavirus. All right.
You will be quizzed on this information, so I'm hoping that you're writing it down.
Yeah. Scientists first identified a human coronavirus in 1965. Okay. It caused a common cold. That makes sense.
Yes.
Later that decade, researchers found a group of similar human and animal viruses and named them after their crown-like appearance. That's where corona came from. So our esteemed colleague over there, it comes from the Spanish word corona, and it means crown, and refers to the appearance that the coronaviruses get from the spike proteins sticking out of them. I didn't know that. I didn't know those. I always thought that picture was very glorified. I didn't know that was actually like which is kind of ridiculous.
And for corona, I mean, look at how the different strains have played out in coronavirus. It's now, we've had the different waves, Omicron, Delta. It's starting to become, and it hopefully stays, like a cold-like symptom. So,
well, that's where it started. That's where it started, as a cold, yes. as a cold, a basic cold. Now, what's interesting is there's a lot of coronaviruses, but only 7 can infect humans. Now, the one that causes SARS, guess I found this interesting. Guess where it came from?
Where did it come from?
No, guess.
I hate guessing.
China.
Oh, well. Yeah.
And I love that they're like, oh, no, this one didn't come out of China. No, not this. But the first one in 2002, SARS, came out of China.
Shocking. Quickly
spread to 28 other countries. Sounds familiar. More than 8,000 people were infected by July 2003, and 774 died. So those numbers are not crazy. Not like anything like COVID.
Nothing, yeah.
Still too many deaths, in my opinion. I believe that came from a wet market. That's kind of where that idea started, right?
I don't know.
With the original SARS. I'll have to look that one up. A small outbreak in 2004 involved only 4 more cases. Quack, quack, quack. And that's kind of the same, like cold symptoms, fever, headache, respiratory, cough, and shortness of breath. So SARS, 2004. So there you go. There's a little bit of history on coronavirus. I always thought they named it after the beer. I think that would have made a better story.
Yeah, it would have at least livened it up a little bit.
So you know what's interesting? So I believe it was March 17th of 2020. I always think it's 2019, but that was a different year for Christine. That was a different tragedy that year. So
we won't talk about it.
2020, it was March 17th or March 20th. What was the day that the world shut down?
I feel like it was more around March 17th. There had been talks about it. Like Fauci was talking about it in the beginning of 2020, saying, I think at that point he was saying it doesn't, pose as much risk to the American people, and it was, mild.
I have that. So I believe, yes, you're 100% right. So Mr. Fauci, who, by the way, I really liked him in the beginning. I even went and bought Fauci donuts, which, by the way, is a donut with his face on it. They were really good. I'm not going to lie. I really liked him in the beginning. However, my trust in him slowly declined as I saw him start to do magazine covers and talk shows. And really what he was saying wasn't lining up with my gut instinct. So we'll get to that in a second. He's definitely on my list of people I want to talk about. But yes, in January of 2020, I believe that is when China was like, hey, there's a problem.
Right.
And Mr. Fauci, as well as the WHO, the World Health Organization, came out and said, oh, it's no problem. You can't pass it from person to person. And there's many documents, and that speech is actually online if you want to look it up, of them saying those things. Now, believe it or not, we had a president in office that shut down travel to China immediately. If China had started to alert us before, do you know when China found it?
Was it 2019?
It was in November of 2019 that the first 40 cases came out of that Wuhan lab of people that lived around the Wuhan lab.
We knew about this. We knew.
Well, let me just back it up, because we probably could have contained it a lot better if we had a little bit more transparency from this one country. I have a lot of issues with China. I don't know if you've seen how they treat their people. I don't find it okay. I'm a people person. I believe all people are equal. You don't tell me what to do. I won't tell you what to do.
That's not the way of life over there.
I don't like you telling me how to talk, and I'm not going to tell you how to talk. I don't like how China treats their people. That's my problem with China. And the fact that they try, it's kind of like, I don't know, have you ever seen the Chernobyl story? Chernobyl, however you say that?
No.
That was a disaster that could have been mitigated and actually contained if they were just honest with the people. But they weren't. They were too busy in covering their own asses. So kind of the same thing here. You know what's interesting? In my office, I had a gentleman that went into the hospital in December. He had some weird virus.
Of 2019?
In 2019. They had no idea what it was. They tested him for the flu. They tested him for everything under the sun. He went into the hospital. He did 2 days in the hospital. He got better, and they sent him home. And this was a young guy. They had no idea what had caused his symptoms, why he was so sick. Fast forward to March 17th. Now we're all being alerted. You know, I remember driving into work that day. May I just let everybody, I've never had one day off because of COVID. When everybody went home and locked themselves in their house, I drove into work every single day.
I worked from home with 3 kids at the time under 5, which I'm still not mentally recovered from, but I think everyone was in such a state of panic. People truly didn't know what to do. And at that time, we're being told, well, you know, in January, we're being told it's low risk. Don't worry about it. Fast forward to March, shut down everything, stay home for 2 weeks.
It was scary.
2 weeks. And I remember thinking, this is strange, but okay. So we're all in the house for 2 weeks. And then after 2 weeks, like, we'll go back to normal.
2 weeks to slow the spread. Boy,
Yeah.
were we wrong.
It was a nightmare. I mean, if you think back to 2020, it's a blur. It's like, what kind of Dante's Inferno nightmare were we all dragged through? Except we didn't stop at the 9th circle of hell. Like, we just kept going, and now there's still circles of hell popping up today. And we're just forced to deal with it.
You're so dramatic. My goodness.
The circles of hell.
My goodness. You know, that's
what it felt like.
That drive into work, there was nobody on the road. It was like that scene. Oh, I can't remember the name of that movie, but it's that where the devil is actually his father, and it's like the last scene, and he's walking through New York City, and nobody's on the streets, and there's no cars on the streets, and it's like dead, and
it's eerie.
That's what it was like driving into work.
But at the time, and like I have kids, so you're thinking, oh my gosh.
Well, the kids were taken out of school immediately.
Yes,
I don't have kids, so yes.
You're worried, like, are they going to be okay? Are we all going to die? Like, what is this thing? They're telling you not to see people. You know, I think Easter was coming up. Like, don't have Easter with family members. You got to stay home. So when that's what and no one knew any details. No one knew the facts.
And that actually, at that moment in time, I had no problem.
Same.
I had no problem masking. I had no problem
Same.
distancing. I didn't really understand why we were well, I understood why we were doing it. I didn't ever think that this was going to be I really did. I never thought this was going to be an effective way to stop a virus, because once again, if you know anything about viruses, they're smarter than us.
Well, and they just keep
happy to do it, and even happy to do it several months later. Once again, we didn't have a lot of information, and to be honest with you, I wish our leaders would have just said that.
Well, and that's the whole point. It's like, why can't we just be upfront with what we factually know, and then you can take from there as a person and create your own opinion or thought on it. But just, it created such panic and chaos in people.
But you know what, though?
And I know when you're a leader, you're trying to avoid the panic and the chaos, because, you know, you're all about protecting your people. But at the same time, you're saying things that you know, as an American person, as a person watching the news, you're going to follow that. That's all you know at this point.
Well, my issue was more along the lines of, I wish they would have said we don't know, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, wait a minute. I've been a part of running a business for a very long time in my life. And you don't, once again, like you said, you don't go out there as a leader and be like, we don't know, because
Good
that's
luck.
the people, you lose your people when that happens. So I really straddled the line on that one, where I was like, I wish they would have just been like, we don't know, so we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to try this. But on the same time, I was like, well, wait a minute. I've been a leader that's had, in my own business during COVID, I've had to make decisions and act like I know what's going on, because if I don't, it makes these folks nervous. So I had an internal struggle with that one. I definitely
And I get
did.
that. I totally get that.
So we had masking, we had social distancing, we had all these things happening, and Trump was in office, and he would come out, and Fauci would come out, and then you felt the tensions start to rise. You know, we were all, it was interesting. It was kind of almost after 9/11 where everyone's like, are you okay? And then it stopped all of a sudden very abruptly, and it was like, well, wait a minute, you believe this, so you're bad, or I can't, like,
or you're not following all the rules.
I had this crap situation happen on I live on the street of all married folks, no offense, with kids, and I call them the housewives of the suburb I live in, and, you know, they have their little group, whatever. And
the mom group.
There's like this ridiculous situation going on between the house moms and the house dads about, oh, well, you went on vacation or you went to the Adirondacks this weekend, so my kids can't play with your kids anymore. And I'm going to tell the rest of the street that you can't play with my kids, and quack, quack. And I'm just watching this unfold like, well, wait a minute. We were all so concerned about each other like a few months ago. Now It's like, everybody you look at is diseased and has like leprosy, and we can't go near anybody. And this divide I watched society just divide. You had people hiding.
It was, everyone saw it. It's like, especially with the masking, and then once the vaccines came out, which we'll get to.
We're going to leave. That's, you know,
yes.
I'm going to go on a rant for vaccines, but
it doesn't, it's like, well, you do things for your own personal health, whatever like I said, whatever your beliefs are. But when this was happening, the flip-flopping made it even worse. You have somebody, Fauci mainly, telling you...
Well, let's not even go there yet. Wait a minute. Here's what happened. You lock everybody in their house.
Yeah.
You tell them all to communicate via online. Now, if you were a part of our episode before, you understood our stance on what social media has done to humans. It has pitched people against each other because people
makes it easy.
People literally think that's how you talk to people face to face. Like your little Facebooks, I gotta be right, is literally how you go out into the real world and talk to each other. No, it's not how it works. Face-to-face conversations don't happen like that because you have a human standing in front of you, and you don't degrade the human when they're standing in front of you. So you lock everybody in their houses, you put them all online, and then you start blasting the news, which caused this environment that just slowly, in my opinion, totally degraded the human race. So
it's
now,
like a toxic relationship.
Now go back to your point where your point is like, whose responsibility is your health?
Exactly. And it's sad that you have to even have the conversation. It's like, if someone believed that they truly should be masking or getting 15 shots or whatever, they're doing it because that's what they think is best for them and their families. And you go and live your life. I'm not living your life, but I'm going to do what I believe is best for me and my family, and it shouldn't matter to you.
So by December and January of 2021, I was done with the social distancing and the masking. I was like, you want me to do something and the numbers are going up. It's not working. Can we think of something else? Is there something else we can do? Because what you're saying is supposed to mitigate the efforts are actually increasing them. So I don't know.
And then that's because of that, Fauci comes out with things like,
and I'm not eating any more Fauci donuts at that point.
I hope not.
It's too bad. They were really good.
Discontinue.
They were really good.
But then you have things like, you're wearing a mask? Wear two.
6 feet of masks?
Wear two, because that's going to be better for you. And you know what? Wear it when you're driving too. And when you're walking outside by yourself.
Come on. I've totally caught myself driving in because you just forget to take it off when you're done.
Too, but
just driving
then
alone.
You think to yourself, oh my God, what am I doing? And it's like, and people were doing, because you want to believe what you're being told, and that's what you want to follow. And if you think this is going to help you and help the population, then do it. But it's like, we're being told that. Then all of a sudden he flops and it comes back saying, masks really aren't protecting us the way they should be, especially the cloth masks, which, by the way, all the children that we had to keep sending to schools we had to keep doing that, even though we know that the cloth masks really weren't doing anything for them. But keep sending them. Get the cute designs.
Well, it's been proven
Target
which masks work.
Yes.
So
and then it was vaccinated people don't have to wear masks. You don't have, you can go about your business. Fast forward a little bit, whether you're vaccinated or not, you should wear a mask.
Well, okay, so you
and goggles.
You seem to want to jump right into
I do. I just want
vaccinations. So we'll go into vaccines now because Meghan really wants to.
Well, it's not even
go
just the
there.
vaccines. I just feel like it's about the mishandling of the CDC and Fauci and how terribly it was handled.
Well, we adopted a set of rules from a country that has ulterior motives, and we're surprised that it's starting to blow up in our faces. I don't know why we're surprised, to be honest with you. Once again, when we're adopting a set of rules from a country who doesn't act, feel, have the moral or ethical beliefs that we do, and we expect it to work, obviously it's going to fail. So, all right, vaccines on average take about 4 years to create. COVID vaccine was created in less than 12 months. You know, I'm going to give President Trump credit on this. You know, sometimes leaders, they may never actually create the vaccine, but they know how to mobilize humans to create the vaccine. So Mr. Trump, or President Trump, mobilizes private sector as well as government officials to start working together. That was his role in the vaccine. You can't unargue that. You can't argue that.
Can't deny that he did that.
He got the right people in the right room
Yes.
to start creating something that will make people more comfortable so that they can return to life. And these people were incredible. They created a vaccine.
They pushed that along at warp speed.
Well, less than 12 months. That's the fastest vaccine that's ever been created, also making it the scariest. So, in my opinion, if you know me, my belief is that I believe my health is my responsibility. I don't believe that your health is my responsibility. And let me tell you why. I can't control what you put into your mouth. I can't control what you drink. I can't control if you drink alcohol. I can't control if you smoke. I can't control if you do drugs. I can't control your activity level. All of those things play into 100% how a virus will affect your body. Mm-hmm. I can't affect your weight. If you want to give me control over those 7 things, I am happy to make your health my responsibility. But I will never be able to control those 7 things in your life. Therefore, I can't help you. And by the way, your genetic makeup is very different than mine. The way I take a piece of medicine is going to affect my body very differently than the way you take medicine. It's just a fact. It's why we can't cure cancer. I sat next to one of the smartest humans I've ever met on my way home from Minnesota a month ago.
Was it me?
He's other than you. He's like the biochemical engineer for Merck, director of something, I don't know, I couldn't even pronounce half the words in his title, to be honest with you. But he was explaining to me that cancer, because I was like, why haven't we cured this yet? Like, what is going? Like, why can't we just detox abnormal cells out of our body and we can cure cancer? And he says it has nothing to do with detoxing. He says cancer is based off of abnormal cells, and what happens during cancer is that it all deals with proteins. We have 400,000 proteins in our body. And those proteins have mechanisms that are either turned on or off depending on your genetic makeup. Every human on the planet has a 50-50 shot of contracting cancer based off of one of those 400,000 proteins having a mechanism turned on or off. Okay? Does that make sense? Are you following me? So, based off of whatever mechanism in whatever protein that isn't, I guess, working correctly, that's going to dictate, A, what type of cancer you have and how fast those cells multiply. So like for you, your protein mechanism could be turned on, and as you make these abnormal cells, it only duplicates to 2, and then it duplicates to 4. My body may take that, a different protein with a mechanism turned off, may take that same type of cancer and take one cell and turn it into 100,000, and then into 10,000, or whatever. Don't check me on my math, but you get the point. So that's why we haven't cured cancer, because everybody's body is so different, and everybody has a different type of mechanism within those those multitudes of proteins. So once again, I can't control your health because there are so many factors that I can't control in your life and in your body. So
nor should you want anybody else trying to take control of your health decisions.
One of my biggest pet peeves is, I work with a lot of young girls who are awesome, but they come in and they're like, my doctor, he diagnosed me with anxiety. And I'm like
everybody else.
They wear it as like a badge of honor. Like, I have anxiety. I take pills for anxiety.
Yeah, because that's where we're at today.
Well, no, that all you're doing is stunting your growth from dealing with anxiety is a biological response. It's a fast heartbeat. It's heavy breath. It's shaking. You have to learn to control those things because guess what? There's a lot of uncomfortable situations in life, and you have to learn to control your body functions to deal with them.
But why do that when you can easily take a pill and it's going to be magic for you?
Yes. Yeah.
We're handing out, prescription medication for anxiety and depression like it's bubblegum.
But once again, I look at these young girls and I say, do you think you have anxiety? And they kind of are like, well, yeah, my doctor said so. Well, your doctor is a doctor and he's a very smart individual, but you are the only person in your body. What do you think? Once again, it's a personal responsibility to take care of your body, to understand your body, to know how you feel, to know when you are upset, to know that this hurts. It's really funny if you talk to a lot of chiropractors, they struggle, or not chiropractors, but massage people. They struggle with well, where's your pain? And people will be like, well, it's on this side. It's like a Tommy boy, right not here, so much here.
But right here.
Right. A lot of people can't pinpoint those things. So,
but I think all of that kind of goes along with what we're saying. Trust your gut. Why you're feeling a certain way or what you think about something should mean something to you, whether it's how you feel about your health or your body or what you're ingesting from news or media or what you think about something. I mean, it's we can't even follow our own thoughts and beliefs anymore.
You know what? I fell into the same trap. 16 years old, my doctor was like, I was an upset kid. When I went to high school, for some reason, I don't know, I lost it. I went from being a very popular young girl, very off the wall, to a wallflower and being very, very tired and upset and just not a happy. So my doctor, she's depressed, antidepressants. And you know what? I'm not gonna lie, they made me feel better. I thought that I had now a mechanism that I could put into my body that would make me feel better. Fast forward 12 years later, I wasn't depressed at all. I actually have it's not a genetic code problem. It's not a genetic problem. It's basically you're supposed to get one cell from your mom, one cell from your dad. I only got one of those, so I can't absorb certain minerals, vitamin B, vitamin D, magnesium. Yes. I don't absorb those as much as normal humans because I have an autoinflammatory disease, which we found out. And therefore, my neurotransmitters weren't getting what they needed because I was completely deficient. Granted, take me off the antidepressants, give me the right vitamins, and I'm the happiest human on the planet. So I fell into the same trap where I just was told I had this, and I was just like, oh, that's me. Okay, I'm depressed.
I think it is. I think it's very easy to fall into that trap. Who doesn't at some point in life feel like, oh my God, I feel anxious or I feel sad or whatever. We all do. And I'm not saying, I know people that have truly have anxiety, depression. That is very real. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to take away from that at all. But I think to your point, there's sometimes other alternatives or other routes you can take, especially if you're that young, to see what can I do before I'm going on an actual medication that I may have to be on for years.
Well, people want the medication. It's the quick fix.
Well, of course it's the quick fix.
But,
everything's got to be quick these days.
Well, it's interesting because it wasn't even my primary doctor who I had seen from birth that got me off. I actually said to him, this was when I got married and then I got divorced and built a house all within 6 months. It was a big year in my life. I literally sat back and was like, I'm a zombie. If I've made this many crap decisions, well, stop. It's on me. It's on me. If I've made this many awful decisions and I don't understand that I've made these decisions and I just walked into these situations blindly, something has to change. And for me, it was that pill. because I knew I wasn't feeling anything. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
you're
feel the
numb.
highs, you don't feel the
numb.
lows, but you don't feel the high. You don't make any memory. Like, you can't.
It's like you're just going through the motions.
You're
and
just
not,
a zombie.
Nothing's being taken in.
I mean, I said to my primary, I want to get off of these. And he said to me, he laughed at me. I remember he laughed at me and he goes, Christine, you have been on antidepressants for so long.
Don't you have to wean yourself off?
At such a high dose. No, he said, you've chemically altered your brain chemistry. You can't come off of these ever.
Oh.
I remember I was 28 years old. I walked out of the office and I was crying and I called my mother and I was like, I don't believe this. I know he's wrong. I feel like my body can get off of this. She hooked me up with a holistic doctor. That holistic doctor had me off in 2 years.
This is why you need to always question it. Because
question the answer.
Because I'm telling you, no one knows yourself better than you. That's it. End of story. End of story. But you know how many people would have walked away from that appointment and said, well, guess I'm on these for life, and would have stayed that way.
Yeah, well, trust your instinct. Okay, back to vaccines.
Yeah, back to it.
I know you really want to get to this.
No, I not.
You had an interesting, I remember your father, he was so proud of you. You had an interesting bout with vaccination. So first, the vaccine, which I beg to differ, we need a new word for it, but was created, all right? And then new people took over. It was created, it was given out to people. Although, however, there was, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't a perfect process. There was issues with getting materials. There was issue with getting syringe. It wasn't a perfect rollout. Once again, they did it in less than 12 months. So lots of issues
and
there.
And it was at a time where election was coming up and there was already a lot of turmoil with getting Trump out of office. Like, Pfizer held off on releasing their vaccine until the election.
Yeah, and you can question if that was questionable, why they did that. Mm-hmm. So now we have a new administration coming in, which, by the way, probably was the worst thing for the country, only because of when you have that much volatile change after all the change we've been through.
After everything everyone went through, yeah.
It really I know that their message was about unification. That's fine, and I love that message. However, once again, when you bring that much change and then change again and then change again,
and trying to roll out this new,
people just get nervous.
It was a scary time. Like, I don't know. It was a long road. I feel like, even for me personally, like I said, I was home majority of the time, working full time with
kids,
with 3 kids. My twins are now 4, but they were 3 at the time, almost 3, and then I had a 5-year-old.
So none of them were
unwell.
School?
We were unwell. No, because we had to keep my oldest home.
Because she was the only one in school at the time, right?
She was the only one at the school, and then my twins were home we had a full-time sitter that would come every day. So, like, where are they going? They're staying in my house. The Wild West. And I just remember, like, you would, and probably for most people, definitely moms, like, you would just, like, stand in a corner and, like, click your heels 3 times and be like, there's no place like home. And then you'd open your eyes and you're still...
Home.
Still home. And
I'm still here.
Oh, wait, we're still here. Everyone's screaming. It was not good, and it was scary. And then, with the rollout of the vaccines, and you don't know what to believe. You think of course, it crosses your mind. Like, do I get this? Do I not? What about the kids? Like,
well, it's funny. I have a best friend in my life who, she from day one, who, by the way, is very much a Democrat. We get into really great discussions, believe it or not, because we're a little bit opposite in that fact. But she from day one, and I was shocked at this with her, she was like, wait a minute, it's a new technology. She goes, I'm not comfortable with putting this in my body based off of the new technology of the vaccine. The mRNA vaccine was only 7 years old. Not even, 7 years old. And the difference between this vaccine and other vaccines is the mRNA goes to every cell in your body. It basically pushes that medicine or therapeutic into every cell of your body. That's the difference. As opposed to the old technology vaccines, which just put it in the muscle, and it kind of, to be honest with you, I don't know, I'm assuming it just stays there, but that sounds wrong.
We'll have to double check that.
So, I mean, if you remember our first episode, I told you who I was. And who I am is I do not like being told what to do. I don't want government in my life, and I want the money that I make to go into my pocket. Those are my two rules. I'm a simple girl. Whoever gives me those two things, that's whose side I'm on. It doesn't matter if you're blue, red, purple, yellow, orange. Those are the two things I want in my life. I don't really think I can call myself any one color. But when you start to use a vaccination as a tool to tell me what to do, I'm going to abruptly oppose that. I don't deal well with authority. I never have.
Do you think like it's our family thing?
Well,
I feel like it's a trait a lot of us have.
I think it runs in our family because what's interesting is even when I was in 8th grade, I kind of got in a lot of trouble. I super glued my lips together one day because I was bored out of my mind because school was boring. And even the teacher told my parents she has an authority issue. My soccer coaches used to say she has an authority issue. I just took an insight discovery on my personality that says I have an authority issue.
So it's safe to say that you maybe have an authority issue.
I don't like being told what to do because I truly believe I can make the best decision for
yourself.
Me.
Yes.
I really can't make the best decision for you, but I can definitely make it for me. So that's where I stand on vaccines. You know what's also interesting is this was during the My Body, My Choice.
Yes.
Which just kills me because, in my life, I prefer consistency.
Mm-hmm. And the same people that were blowing up about My Body, My Choice were the same ones saying you need to get the vaccine.
Which, once again, I'm about consistency. And if it's my body, my choice, then I'm not going to make you do something to your body, and you're not going to make me do something to mine. Once again, it's about consistency with me. It's not about I believe this today, and I'm going to believe that tomorrow.
My issue with the vaccines wasn't about there being a vaccine available. It wasn't about that. It wasn't about, people choosing to get it. Like I said before, whatever you feel you need to do for yourself, do it. And then go live your life, and I'm going to do the same for mine. My issue was with all, I feel like, the misinformation that was coming out about it. We didn't know enough. You have the administration.
You mean the vaccine will protect you from COVID?
Correct.
And it will protect you from spreading COVID?
Correct.
You mean that piece of information?
That little bit of information. It was about, next thing you know, you need another dose. And then now you need a booster. And you have to keep getting updated on your vaccination. That doesn't sit well with me. And then there's things out there that you now find out, like, have you heard of the Great Barrington Declaration?
No.
So this was back in October 2020. Excuse me. I'm just going to...
That had a hurt. It sounded like that hurt.
Back in October 2020. So think about that date. Okay, 2020.
Okay.
It was a group of epidemiologists and...
Well, good job.
So
you
my
did
little
it.
Jingle helped me. And scientists who came together saying they don't believe the route that we were going with the lockdowns, with the isolation, was good on the American people. Mm-hmm. They put this out there. It was signed... Anthony Fauci's boss, so Francis Collins, the former director of the NIH, sent an email to Fauci and a man named Cliff. He said, see this link, which took him to the Great Barrington Declaration. This proposal from 3 fringe, so we're already starting off with that, 3 fringe epidemiologists who met with the secretary seems to be getting a lot of attention, and even a co-signature from Nobel Prize winner Mike Levitt at Stanford. There needs to be a quick and devastating published takedown of its premises. I don't see anything like that online yet. Is it underway?
Yeah, but what does that mean?
He's trying to take this group of scientists that came out trying to let Fauci, CDC, NIH know we don't think this is good for people's emotional well-being, physical health. These lockdowns aren't doing well. We should be focusing on the groups that are largely targeted, like the elderly. We don't believe that forcing people into isolation is good, and it's going to cause long-term health and emotional and physical damage.
And it has.
And look at the mental health state of most Americans today. So they were coming out trying to say, we would like to try to go a different route, maybe not do so much isolation and all of this, and they're trying to shut it down. They don't want this released. You're not following the agenda.
Makes sense.
So we don't want to hear from you.
Well,
that doesn't sit well with me. That kind of stuff that comes out, and it happens every day, does not sit well with me. And that's why I have trust issues with the government, with media, because I don't feel like you're being told all of the information that you should know.
What's interesting is that's about the time that Fauci and Trump started
Yes.
to really butt heads. I wonder if it had anything to do with this.
I'm sure it did.
Well, we already know the unbelievable damage that isolation. Human beings need human beings.
Yes.
It's in the Bible. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily read the Bible or believe in it, but I mean, it's obvious that people need people. And when we separate people, there's just a spiral that happens.
Yes.
And it's not so, you know what? I'm not even going to say it was so much yours and mine generation. And it was the elderly I believe that's why we lost our grandmother. She was completely isolated. Nobody could go visit her. She didn't get the access to the children. She didn't get the access to us.
They keep her going every day.
We were
She lost
afraid to go visit her because we were told that you're going to kill your grandparents.
Truly, I remember being scared to like go visit grandma because you're like, oh my God, what if I was just around somebody that had it and I don't have the symptoms yet and then I pass it on to her? I mean, it's terrifying. And you heard of it happening to a lot of people.
But I think it really affected
It is that generation.
the young generation too.
Yes.
Once again, they haven't been through a lot just because of their age. They just haven't had a lot of life experience. It's no fault of theirs. But they haven't been through a lot. And now you're doing something as drastic as keeping them away from each other and then bringing them all online. And that's
especially if you're in a school age, like high school. Think about all the kids that miss senior prom. You're missing out on all of these like key of social events that go on in your life. And seniors had to graduate virtually. I mean, think about that. That takes a toll on you. Or people going off to college, they couldn't even go and have that college experience off the bat because they had to be virtual learning.
You only get your childhood once.
And we messed with that.
And I know everybody so much wants to grow up so quickly, but you really only get those things once. And if you miss it, you miss it. And then you don't have those memories. That's just a fact. That's a fact.
And I don't think we realized how much damage that was causing. I mean, there was point, my daughter was in kindergarten at the time, and they had to sit at different tables because of COVID, and they had to be separated from some of their class. Or if you had COVID and you had to come back, you had to sit at like a special table away from your classmates.
Oh.
What is that doing? What are we doing there? What are we doing there?
I don't have kids, but I know that's not good.
No, she'll eat at my house then, in my table, because that's a joke to me.
Oh, that's you're dividing a child from her friends. I mean, you're separating. It's segregation.
It's just like,
it's segregation in its
becoming,
basic
and it's
form.
like, what are we doing? You're making kids practice outside in the heat with masks on.
So then it became, well, that's interesting you say that, because then it became the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated.
It became the pandemic of the unvaccinated.
Which is interesting because you sold me on a bill of goods telling me that this vaccine is going to prevent COVID and prevent the spreading. Well, we all know that's not true, which means that it's not a vaccine, it's a therapeutic. Now, let me ask, this vaccine absolutely needs to exist for very specific demographics.
Yes.
And I think we knew, because it's interesting, you'd watch the news and you'd watch whatever you watch, and it was everywhere at that point in time. It would have the cases, how many cases were there. In the beginning, it was death rates, and then all of a sudden, the death rates started not to be shown, and it was just the cases.
Yes, new cases daily.
Because what was interesting is what we were learning just in our own lives is that there are certain people that this will absolutely be very dangerous for. But for most of us, 99.7, or it was like 97% of the population, this will be a severe cold or flu. So why is it that everybody else has to hide in their house, give up their careers to protect to protect a demographic that, by the way, should go get the vaccine? They should go do all these things to protect themselves. I don't know.
But now you don't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. The rules are all the same. It's for everybody. So don't worry about what we said before, because it's fine now.
I mean,
it's fine.
Careers were destroyed.
People lost
relationships
jobs.
were destroyed over this, and now it's like, oh, whoops.
What happens to those people now?
I mean, you have family members that don't talk to each other anymore. You have people, we were called murderers. And for the record, I never got this vaccine. You want to tell, here was my first gut instinct, is this is such a bad virus and you want me to put it inside of me? I already lost my grandmother.
give it a whirl.
I don't have any elderly people in my life. I go to work and basically there was no one in the office anyway. I mean, so it's such a bad virus and you want me to inject it inside of me? That was problem number one. Plus, problem number two with me was like, I don't really understand how we're mRNA technology, and I'd like to see a little bit more of time testing happening because the woman issues were starting to come out about like your menstrual.
It was very scary.
And nobody seemed to care about that. In fact, they were
turned down. They were dismissed.
Well,
then it came out later that all that was true, and now there's studies, and now there's lawsuits, and
those things got removed. You couldn't even you weren't even allowed to research it. So that was my second. I mean, and so now my stance is it's almost like a rebellious thing where I'm like, over my dead body, am I putting this thing inside of me? And you know what? I've never caught COVID.
Which is wild.
I know. They should study me. They should study me.
It's wild.
I've never caught it.
At this point in time, who hasn't caught
I've never
COVID?
isolated. I've never not done what I've wanted to do in the world. I don't mask unless I'm forced. I've never caught COVID, not once. They should study me and my mother. Never caught it.
I know that's really strange.
I don't know why. I don't have like maybe I don't know. Maybe that's my superpower. I don't know. At least I got one.
Yeah, there you go. You can run with that.
That and growing hair, right?
And sweating. That's crazy. We had it. My whole family had it.
I'm gonna have you bring in your dad's sweatbands.
That should be. We should make it with our logo.
Logo. It's actually a really good idea.
Question the answer.
Yeah, you got it. Your family. I remember
Christmas. That was really fun.
I remember I saw you. You were like, you looked like you had gone through the war.
I did.
With your family with COVID.
We got it, and I had it first, and I knew it because I could tell I had a fever, and I haven't had a fever in forever. And I'm like, here it came for me, and it was right before Christmas, so naturally I had to be Santa still and wrap the presents, and I was in my room and I had all the gifts, and I looked like I was on all sorts of drugs, and I was not. But you're like wrapping and you're trying to like keep the momentum, and I'm cutting line. I mean, these presents looked like
you should have called me. I love to wrap presents. Call me next year. I love
done.
It's like my favorite thing in the world.
I don't like it. My mom's like a professional rapper. Hers all look,
Me too. I get the corners. I fold.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope. Mine look like, it came from a kindergarten class, and thankfully my kids are little, so they didn't care. But it was not a fun time. I was trying to rally. Oh, we got to make cookies for Santa, and I'm just like.
We made some COVID cookies for Santa. I'm gonna infect Santa.
Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't fun, But I'm glad it's behind us now.
I remember seeing you after, man, you look like you went through war. And then Maria the same way. Her whole family had it too.
You come back out into society and you're just like, what is going on?
Yeah. And we live in New York, so it's not easy if you're not vaccinated. You really aren't. You're basically segregated from the rest of the population. And I call it segregation because that's what it is. You separate one group of people from another. That is segregation.
No, that's truly what was happening. Or what is happening still, I feel like.
I mean, I left a health club over it because they said you have to be vaccinated in order to attend here. And I said, how do I get my money back? Because I don't believe in segregation. I believe in the same thing. Access to the same things for all types of people, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, whether you're female or male, whether you're black or white. I believe in an even Steven playing field, 100%. And everything should be open, which was nice because I teach at a studio that chose not to go the segregation route. They said, listen, we don't know what's going on, so here's the rules. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're not, you have to wear a mask, but everybody can participate. And that I respected. And that I wore my mask to. But once again, I don't believe in the separating of groups because I believe in consistency.
Like, you can't come here. You can't sit with us if you don't have if you're not vaccinated. It's
garbage. That was a whole other thing on my street, too.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mean Girls Club?
Some kids were, some kids weren't, and it was, can't play here, can't play there. And I'm like, these poor children, this doesn't even affect children.
They're just trying to be kids, and like they're caught in this, disaster of like the parents fighting with the other parents. They're not being allowed to have play dates with certain kids. It's just like, stop. Everybody get a grip.
Well, I mean, parents ruin a lot of things for kids. Let's be honest. No offense. And once again, I don't have kids, so I can sit here and judge, but... That's only my perspective.
Listen.
I know. All the mothers out there are crucifying me right now because I don't have children. I know. Your job is to protect your children. Do whatever you need to do to protect your children.
But it's just today, where we stand today, there is virtually no leg to stand on anymore. There is no argument to be had.
No,
the facts are the facts. Look at what's unfolded. Vaccines, if you chose to get it, great. If you didn't, great. Now the rules there's no differentiation between the two. Move about your day.
That's not true.
It is true.
I believe there's still some places in New York City.
That must be state level because the CDC came out with new guidance.
Oh, because they've been so on point. I mean, I don't care
now they're doing a whole revamping of the CDC, which is
because that's what it needs. It needs to be completely dissolved, in my opinion.
Yes, don't revamp. Just disappear.
I mean, and did you hear what our governor just came out and said?
What?
Kathy Hochul. How do you say it? I can't stand this woman. She says if you're a Republican, leave the state.
Oh.
All Republicans need to leave. I'm like, that's very unified. What a unified message.
Fuzzy, message.
If you're a leader, you have to accept everybody. You have to. You can't choose a side. It's not what leadership is. It's just so weird. How did we end up with this crazy person? Well, we had an even more interesting human in the office.
Yes.
It's funny. I have a little section on Cuomo. I do. You can't. I mean,
you can't. There's a lot of material there.
I mean, let's start with Cuomo's stupid decision number one, which was let's put everybody back into the nursing homes.
Yeah.
I mean, was he high when he made that decision? Like, everybody knows the elderly are more susceptible to viruses.
Yeah, but he won awards.
Well, I think he had to give them all back.
Let's hope he had to give them all
He
back.
doesn't have to pay his bookmakings back, the judge ruled. I'm sure, yeah. But let's see.
They're flying off the shelves.
I do have the numbers here for Cuomo. Oh, let's see. Because of Cuomo's disastrous decision, I believe it's 9,000 elderly died. Yeah.
How do you sleep at night with that?
I don't think he cares. Listen.
I would hope that he cares. I would hope that there's some feeling of...
No, I really don't think he thinks he did anything wrong. He still doesn't think he does anything wrong with women. And any woman who is like my age and still has to go out to the bars and gets hit on all the time.
Yeah, girl.
But yeah, girl. But there are certain men out there that really don't understand that the way they come off is what is a really good word to describe this? They're just so full of them. They're like gross. And now someone like me, I'll just tell you to F off and get lost and go pound sand. But there are some women out there that don't do that, and they get very uncomfortable. And these men just don't understand that the way they're coming off is it's just awful. I don't know. I have to find a good word for it. We'll have to find a code word for it. It's all ego. That's all it is. They're just full of their egos. They don't understand that they actually have no idea how they're being perceived. They actually think they're being perceived in a really good way.
And where does that come from?
It comes from, well, I'm not going to lie, it kind of comes from his background.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. That article's gone. Okay, nice. I think it's like 9,000 people died from the nursing home decision. That's a lot. That's a lot of people that could have been saved.
And it's such a vulnerable group of people, too.
And everybody knows it.
That's why I'm sad.
That's why I'm like, don't sit here and say that, like, oh, you didn't know. It's a bad virus. You have elderly people that don't do well with viruses anyway, and let's just send them all right back in.
They were the main targets of the virus, the people that were most affected.
So you know the most interesting thing I heard during COVID, and this, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on for a second, was that there's a really good book out there. It's called Snake Oil, and it's basically how China took over the world. And bear with me. China is very much into bio-warfare, and they're getting more and more involved in bio-warfare as the years tick on. And they're actually, in 2018, they had the most involvement in the bio-warfare conference than they've ever had. All of a sudden, so basically what they want to do is they want to start engineering viruses that will attack certain demographics of people for warfare. Now, obviously, they're not going to do it in their own country. They need the genetic DNA of people from other countries, okay? But they don't have access to these people's records. How else are they going to get access to all of the healthcare records across the world? Create a deadly virus that goes out into the world and kills a bunch of people. And the world, the WHO, the World Health Organization, has to get involved. And there's a massive database, which was stopped, by the way. This was actually a plan on the docket. A massive database where everybody would start to put their health records into for the world to access. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Interesting, though, right? I'm not saying
terrifying.
it's true by any means.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't seem far-fetched at this point, which is the scary thing.
That's not the. By the way, I have to just side note. That is not the point of this book. That's just that there's a great book and there was a great little
2 points.
thing I found or listened to. I just found that interesting because, you know, how else do you get access to everyone's health records? You create something that makes the world have to work together.
And I always wonder, how confidential are your health records? You know what I mean?
I mean, how confidential is your phone? Not confidential at all.
That's what I mean. It's just
you got TikTok on your phone.
Well, no, I do not. But yeah,
I mean, I definitely don't. But we established that last episode.
You don't have a TikTok account?
No, I don't understand it. It's like these little blurb videos, right?
Yeah.
Of people doing stupid shit.
Well, there's some actually interesting information.
Here we go.
On there.
All right.
That's for another time.
No, it's people that want to be looked at. It's like when
yes.
It's like when Tessa goes through your phone and she's like, I want to see pictures of me. Okay.
Choose me. Love me.
Oh, I love that kid. Oh. So where are we today? Because we gotta wrap it up soon. So where are we today? So basically all the rules that existed don't. It doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not. You can choose to mask. So I like where we are today, where it's all about choice. Once again, your health is your responsibility. You choose how to protect yourself. I like that.
I like that too. But I think there's a lot that's happening, I feel like, on a daily basis of information, misinformation, things are being uncovered. And I like that there's options that you can find your information, but I think there's so many, it gets exhausting, it gets overwhelming. And I think the important thing to know is how you're receiving it and making sure you're getting all sides before you go and form an opinion.
Well, it's kind of like, that old saying, like, well, if it's on the internet, then it must be true. Well, like that old funny saying where, listen, if you're being told something, just know there's an intention behind why they're telling it to you.
There's always a plot line.
And don't be afraid to go out and research it. And please don't be afraid to follow your own instinct, because your own instinct is mostly right for you.
And be open to other people's opinions and thoughts as well, because that's also half the problem. Is like no one listens to each other anymore. No one wants to listen to each other anymore. And if you're coming at somebody with a different opinion, it's like, you're useless. Get out of my face. It's like we can't even have a conversation of differing opinions without people going insane on each other. And that's the sad thing. I think it's going to take a long time to fix that.
I think it's going to take a long time to fix what COVID did to us as a society. I think there's some emotional burnout. There's some emotional, Trauma. That's a really good way to put it. I do. I think there's relationships that need to be repaired. I mean, we all have to remember we're all just human. Right. I truly believe humans need humans. I don't think we should ever be kept apart from each other. I don't. I really don't. Because
how boring would that be?
And the different ideas and the different viewpoints and the different wants and needs, that's kind of what makes the world go round. I mean, right. I don't know. If you ever dated a yes guy, it's kind of the boringest date in the world where he just yeses everything. Like, you kind of want a different opinion. You want a different point of view.
You're challenged even.
It's okay to be challenged. I totally agree. So, I don't know. I think we should, we got a minute left. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening again. My name is Christine.
My name is Megan.
And this is Question the Answer. We will see you next time.